No, tak jsem čurák, no.
Aha. Ty, já jsem teď koukal na úplně luxusní 20-minutový video o tom, jak po 20 letech tenhle rok vzniknul nový speedrunnerský rekord na E1 M1. Prostě první Doom, první level, tak ho dohráli za 8 sekund. Nebo za 7 nebo 8 sekund. S tím, že předchozí rekord byl o sekundu delší a myslelo se, že to je perfektní run, že už není fyzicky možný dohrát E1 M1 rychlejš. A cápek to dokázal. A prostě po 20 letech je jedinej, který dokázal prostě ten rekord E1 M1 stáhnout o sekundu. A tyhle speedrunnerský videa jsou úplně perfektní, protože oni tam ukazují prostě konkrétně přesně ty vole framey. Ty framey a kolik ti to ušetří setin prostě. No do píči, to je úplně to speedrunování je věda. To zkusím najít. Doom speedrun 8 sekund. Jo. Skvělý video. Prostě fakt skvělý video. Oh kurva, sorry.
Hangar. The first level of Doom. One of the most iconic stages in video game history, from one of the most influential games of all time. In 1998, a man by the name of Thomas Pilger would finish the level in 9 seconds, a time that would prove to be unbeatable for over 20 years. Long thought to be the human max, a time that could never go lower. But some speedrunners choose to believe that the impossible can be achieved. Indeed, the impossible was achieved. On the 23rd of February 2019, the speedrunner for Shock Blast completed Hangar in 8 seconds, beating a world record that had stood for over 20 years. 20 years of frame-by-frame analysis, new strategies, optimized techniques, and sheer power of will condensed into an 8-second speedrun. It took 50,000 attempts over the course of more than a year to achieve.
On to zkoušel, kámo, 50 000 pokusů a trvalo mu to rok zkoušení tadyhle z toho levelu, než prostě ho zaběh o sekundu rychlejš.
And embodies the thing that I love most about speedrunning, the pursuit of perfection. This accomplishment should have been massive news, but I have not seen a single gaming website post about it. Maybe it is the lack of live reactions that Doom demos fail to provide that inhibits interest. Maybe people do not understand the mechanics of Doom speedrunning enough to appreciate just how difficult these records are. In any case, I hope this video sheds some light on why this new world record is an incredible feat that deserves more attention. So let's take a deeper look into Hangar and the developments that made 8 seconds possible. First, we need to establish the basic rules of Doom speedrunning. By far, the most common category to run is called Ultra Violence Speed. If you couldn't guess by the name, this is played on the Ultra Violence difficulty setting. Here, there is one goal only. Complete the level as quickly as possible, ignoring anything else that isn't required to finish the stage.
No, jasný.
For single level speedruns, the in-game timer is used to determine the final time. Doom record...
Klasika, takže ultra violence, obtížnost, proběhnout všechno a timer, který je tady na konci, tak to je ten, který se udává.
Records are timed to the full second, which is always rounded down. This means that if you get a time of 9.9 seconds, the final time will display a 9. Speedruns are saved and verified using replays called demos. The game includes the functionality of saving all of a player's
Ty vole, tohle z toho bylo tak cool.
inputs so that they can be recorded and played back on any computer. The demo is saved.
Tohle bylo tak cool, ty vole. Tohle z toho byly prakticky let's playe, nebo gameplaye předtím, než existoval YouTube. Vy jste prostě, mohli jste si uložit demo z toho, jak jste hráli Dooma a Quakea. A když měl kámoš prostě taky Dooma, tak jste přišli s tím souborem a přehrálo se video s tím průchodem. To bylo tak cool, ty vole. Prostě tohle z toho, ty vole, tady vlastně, ty vole, kámo vlastně u tadyhle z toho. Jsem poprvé zjistil, že byl let's player. No můj bože. U tadyhle z toho jsem poprvé zjistil, že vlastně byl let's player, kámo, protože jsem mohl ukázat někomu video z videohry.
As a file that can be distributed easily. Now to the run itself. What better place to start than the original 9 achieved all the way back in 1998. It's a short run, so I'll play it in its entirety and then we'll go back and take a look at it in closer detail.
OK, takže teďko přijde ten run, který 20 let nikdo nepřekonal. 9 sekund. Easy.
The first thing you'll notice is the diagonal running, otherwise called strafe running. This mechanic is very common in earlier first-person shooters. Older games track movement speed separately for running forwards and strafing, so you can run faster than intended by combining them together and moving diagonally. The next thing that stands out is the movement at each of the 3 doors. You can see that he opens the door, then backs up as he waits for the door to open before going through.
Musí strafovat a vždycky, když se ty dveře odevírají, tak on couvne, aby nabral zase potom speed momentum.
Momentum in Doom works very similar to real life. Accelerating from a complete standstill takes time, so the goal is to build speed and move through the door at the perfect moment. Timing this well is extremely difficult and requires immense precision. Some games will enable you to preserve momentum even while moving against a wall. We even abused this mechanic in GoldenEye speedrunning, strafing against a wall while we wait for an objective to complete so that we can continue the run at full speed. Doom definitely does not work like this. Touching walls and doors results in a complete loss of momentum, so it is critical to avoid them at all times. Speaking of avoiding...
To je brutální, ty vole, tady jsou všude ty úzký koridory a v Doomu, jakmile se prostě dotkneš stěny, tak kompletně ztratíš rychlost, čili ten run je v prdeli. Takže ty se fakt nesmíš ničeho dotknout.
Obstacles, the final 2 sections are full of enemies. Here, luck is crucial. The position of monsters is determined by RNG, and you need them to get out of the way so you can make a straight path through. This is rare, so in order to get an ideal run, many attempts need to be made. Furthermore, damage from enemies gives you a very slight push. It's not a huge impact, it's definitely smaller than the damage boost you get from some other games, but it does make a difference. The fireballs thrown by the imps are easy enough to avoid as they travel slowly through the air, but the former humans are the ones that can get you. Their shots land instantly, so if they take aim, getting hit is unavoidable. Damage boosts can send you off path into an obstacle or knock you backwards, costing precious frames. Aside from the main features of the level, the basics always apply. Run the straightest path from A to B, hug corners as tightly as possible, without touching them of course, and activate doors at the earliest possible moment. The original 9 was a high decimal, 9.91 to be exact, so an entire second would need to be saved.
Jo, ten 20 let starý rekord byl 9,91. A ono se to zaokrouhlé dolů na té finální obrazovce. Takže ho musí ušetřit fakt jako celou sekundu.
The run was obviously good, but it wasn't perfect by any means. One notable time loss was the very wide arc Pilger took on the bridge section to avoid enemies. If the stars align and enemies are in just the right spots, it may be possible to cut a much straighter path. The same applies after the second door. A more optimal route may be possible if these two monsters cooperate. Analyzing the run in greater detail, we find small time losses at each of the 3 doors. It is imperative to open them on the early...
Ten, kdo věnuje čas takovým věcem, by měl umřít, protože je stejně společnosti neprospěšný. Krtku, hele, je 3:45 ráno a jak konkrétně seš ty teďko z prospěšné společnosti tím, že sedíš a díváš se tady na tohle, mi řekni. Jo. Navíc ten sápek, který to udělal, tak to vidělo 1,7 milionu lidí, kteří tím byli pobavený, poučený nebo nějak jinak zaujatý. Což je víc lidí, než prostě a jednoduše se kdy v životě bude zajímat o tebe.
Earliest possible frame. In Pilgo's run, he opened the very first door 3 frames later than he could have, and he was also 1 frame slow to open doors 2 and 3. Doom runs at a stable 35 frames per second, so these 5 lost frames amount to 0.14 seconds. He also entered the final room facing the opposite direction to the exit button, costing a precious frame to turn around and deliver the final input. A second is a long time though, especially for a level less than 10 seconds long. Straighter lines and quicker doors won't save enough to take the record down to 8 seconds. In order to improve this time, we're going to need an entirely new strategy. And luckily, we have one. It involves a technique called SR50 strafe running, or simply SR50 for short. The 50 represents the value of the strafing thrust, and in order to understand exactly what that means, I need to explain a basic principle of how Doom movement works. When the move forward key is pressed, a forward thrust value is applied to the player, causing us to move. In Doom, friction works very much the same as it does in real life, and is always working against the player to bring Doom Guy to a halt. When thrust is applied, the player will accelerate until the force of the friction is...
Kámo, já slyším ty vole, já slyším na pozadí Mass Effect soundtrack a okamžitě už mám chuť nainstalovat tam tu 2.
Equal to the force of the thrust, at which time the maximum speed is reached. The same principle works when we press the strafe key, except we are thrust sidewards instead. The value for the maximum forward thrust is set to 50, and the maximum sidewards thrust, in other words strafing thrust, is set to 40. This means that Doom Guy will strafe at 80% of the speed at which he can move forwards. However, due to an oversight in development, it is actually possible to apply a strafing thrust of 50 to the player. This is because there are 2 ways to apply strafing thrust. One way is to press the strafe left or strafe right key. The other is to press the strafe on key, which is a separate key entirely, and then the look left or look right key. If both methods are applied to the same strafe direction, Doom Guy's strafing thrust value can go all the way up to 50, which is a 25% increase. Compared to normal strafe running, which is called SR40 for short, SR50 is a full 10% faster. There is just one problem though. SR50 is incredibly difficult to implement into runs. The main concern is the fact that while using SR50, you cannot turn at all, and the design of Doom's levels means that constant turning is a requirement. SR50 is so difficult to execute properly that it is generally only used for specific circumstances, such as long straight segments or to build the required speed to jump over larger gaps. Aside from being hard to
Takže klasický strafing, tam můžeš prostě běžíš bokem, ale s touhle sračkou se nemůžeš vůbec otáčet, ale jsi o 10% rychlejší. Jenže vzhledem k tomu, že tam jsou samý zatáčky a enemáci, který jsou ještě spawnutý random, tak je extrémně těžký to použít pro to, abys to zvládnul.
Control. This technique needs 4 buttons to be pressed simultaneously versus the standard 2. Using it in any meaningful way in a complex level would be extremely hard. It certainly wasn't used in the original 9 set in 1998. Throughout the late 90s and into the early 2000s, skills would slowly improve. And there was one facet of Doom that seemed to produce players with the best movement. I'm talking about Deathmatch. In Deathmatch, skills were forged in combat and perfected through necessity. Having good movement wasn't just about going fast, it was about survival. Deathmatch players were notoriously good at control, and some of them would also speedrun to show off their skills. One such player was Ocelot, considered an absolute legend of the game. He was an incredibly gifted deathmatch player and a master of movement. By this stage, players had become much more proficient at the use of SR50, and Ocelot was able to incorporate the technique throughout Hangar to achieve a groundbreaking run. In 2001, Ocelot did this.
Dal tam 8, boys, v roce 2001. Akrát tam je jeden malinkatý háček, že jo? Bylo to nějak moc jednoduchý, podezřele.
Ocelot was able to achieve a time of 8 seconds on Hangar. 8.97 to be exact. A single frame below a time of 9. Those with a keen eye, though, would have noticed something was missing from the run. This definitely wasn't the ultra-violence difficulty setting. In fact, there were no monsters at all. The category is called No Monsters. Runners would compete in this side league in order to practice movement. Without needing to worry about interferences from enemies, players can focus purely on mechanics without relying on RNG. Still, the run was incredible. SR50 was used throughout the entire run, and without any obstructions, the best lines were taken. Having a near-perfect run without monsters results in a time that was a single frame below 9 seconds didn't seem all that encouraging though. Just getting the movement to such a level was already insane. Over the years, the question of getting 8 seconds on ultra-violence was asked a few times, and Ocelot seemed to think it was possible if only the monsters magically stepped to the side.
No, takže vědějí, že se dá dát 8 sekund, jo. Když tam nejsou monstra. Takže je možný dát těch 8, když by padlo perfektní RNG a ty monstra by stály přesně tam, kde mají stát, čili mimo tu nejkratší skurvenou cestu. Plus ještě samozřejmě musíte brát, že výhoda těch monster může být potenciálně to, že když ho trefějí brokovnicí ze správné strany, tak dostane speed boost. Čili teoreticky by tam šlo ušetřit ještě víc času.
For many years it really didn't seem like anyone else was even close. It took a full 15 years before anyone even tied Ocelot's record of 8 seconds in the No Monsters category. Enter 2 speedrunners, 4Shock Blast, otherwise known as Shock, and Looper, 2 modern-day monsters of Doom speedrunning. In October of 2016, Shock achieved this run. In December of 2017, Looper did this. Both runners had tied the No Monsters record set all the way back in 2001. But the question was, were they willing to go the extra distance and finally achieve the 8 on Ultra Violence? In 2017, a lot of extra attention was put on the now 18-year-old record set by Pilger back in 1998. This was partly due to a very popular YouTube video that erroneously made the claim that Pilger's 9 had still not even been tied to this day. While this wasn't true at all, it did inspire many people to investigate the record and even give Doom a try for themselves. On speedrun.com, the level leaderboard for Hangar saw a massive influx of submissions. With all of the new attention being placed onto this ancient record, Shock decided it was finally time to commit to making 8 seconds a reality. In December of 2017, Shock started serious attempts. On Ultraviolence, it's not possible to take the same direct paths the 3 players had taken to achieve 8 seconds in the No Monsters category. Some slight time loss was inevitable. In order to make up for this loss, damage boost would start to play a much larger role. This is where the RNG elements really start to add up. Enemies blocking the runner's path is a huge problem and requires an intense grind to overcome. Having monsters move completely out of the way and boost the player in just the right direction is extremely unlikely. Shock's attempts would continue throughout 2018. In September of that year, Looper would also start serious attempts. Both players have insane movement, and either are completely capable of achieving 8 seconds. In late 2018, there were many runs that were only a frame or 2 away from a new record. But 8 seconds is so extremely tight that even 2 frames seems like a very long time to shave off. On the 16th of September 2018, Looper had this run.
Téměř perfektní run. Kamo, ty vole, představ si bejt, ty píčo, ten cápek. Ty máš prostě perfektní run a zasekneš se na finálních dveřích. Kamo, to mě úplně zabolelo, ty kokot.
Unfortunately, he was not able to clutch the very ending, and you can see just how much time is lost if you attempt to go through the doors too early. He had a crazy amount of damage boost which saved a lot of time. Analysis showed this run was on pace for an 8.97 if only the ending was done perfectly. Doom speedrunners share a very strong camaraderie. The pursuit of new records seems more like a team effort and are done for the greater good of the community rather than for personal gain. In this spirit, Shock and Looper weren't necessarily competing against each other, but rather working as a team to achieve something special. The 2 players would motivate each other to keep pushing for the record. And on the 23rd of February 2019, it finally happened. After 50,000 attempts spanning more than a year, Shock achieved this run.
A je to tady. Run, který překonal rekord po 20 letech. Perfektní run. A je to tam. Easy. Krásný damage boost.
The run is amazing. The opening of each of the 3 doors was literally frame perfect. The movement was immaculate, and it was topped off by 3 damage boosts. The boosts from enemies saving just enough frames to get the time down to an 8.97, a single frame below 9 seconds. Many speedrunners...
Frame, ty vole, prostě ten speedrun je... Ten speedrun je o jeden frame, chápeš to? O frame Doom běží. Prostě 30 snímků za sekundu. A tenhle run, kdyby byl prostě o frame, ne o sekundu, o frame delší, tak už je to 9. Prostě 30 snímků za sekundu a on to řízne o 1.
Prefer doing runs of full games. But for me, there is nothing sweeter than spending hundreds of hours trying to beat a single level 1 second faster than anyone else before.
Jako to je prostě, to je neuvěřitelný. To je fakt neuvěřitelný. A ještě jsem viděl podobný dokument na Mária. U Mária to je stejně šílený, tam fakt máš ty framey a on tam vyloženě v tom dokumentu ukazuje přesný pixel, během kterého on musí vyskočit, aby prostě ušetřil 1 snímek předtím, než se zobrazí další obrazovka a mohl dát světový rekord. Prostě. Ty kokot. To je šílený. Jo, oni jsou dokonce 2 videa. Jedno je, jak je tento speedrun možný, a pak je novější, je 4.55 perfektní speedrun. A to je, vlastně obě dvě tyhle videa jsou úplně luxusní.
On September 24th, 2018, Super Mario Bros. History was made.
I cannot believe it!
The game was beaten in 4 minutes and 55.913 seconds in what might be the final second break ever. Let's see how the run was achieved, how it could be beaten, and if the legendary 4:54 is possible.
To má 30 minut, oh shit. Ono to je celý vysvětlený, přesně jak tam skáče konkrétní ty části, kde musíš co zmáčknout, a to je úplně šílený, ty vole. To je totálně šílený. Ale výborný to je. Výborně vysvětlený a ukázaný, jak kurevsky těžký a jak kurevsky prostě jak malá šance tam je. To mi tady zrovna vyskočil Doom 2 Hell on Earth Ultra Violence Speedrun. To je tak kurevsky smooth ten Doom úplně. To je tak trapný, ty vole, když prostě Days Gone má 30 FPS a pak vidíš 25 let starou hru, co běží takhle. Co dělá? Dobrý strafe jump. Ten level si pamatuju, ten jsem hrál. To je level, co je v Doomu 2016, tahle místnost. Ty vole, tohle to byla taky píčovina, když jsem to hrál. Tyhle už má BFG. Teď už je otázka, jestli ho použije v tom speedrunu, ale spíš ne, spíš to bude řešit dvojkou. No, už jsi ve městě dole. Jak probíhá finále s Icon of Sin? Co říká tady ten hlas, čere? Jste muži kultury. Víte, co říká ten hlas při vstupu do finálního levelu Dooma 2? Má 40, no. Ty vole. To bylo něco s manželkou? Ne, tadyhle z toho. ten finální level, když ho designovali, tak pod tou Icon of Sin je schovaný John Romero. Oni tam dali hlavu Johna Romera. Jo. Johna Romera na kůlu, nabodnutou tady pod toho bose. Jo. Jako takový easter egg. A on to zjistil, ten John Romero, že tam je jeho nabodnutá hlava, jako final boss. A tak nahrál prostě zprávu, aby si vyhrál, musíš zabít mě, Johna Romera, ale nahrál jí pospátku. Takže když vlezeš do toho levelu, tak slyšíš to win you must kill me, John Romero, že jo? A slyšíš toto obráceně. No. Teď to je vlastně přímo i ukázaný. No. A to, že jo. A když tam vlastně vlezeš dolů. Tak tady je John Romero nabodnutý, že jo? A toho zabiješ. Ale v Brutal Doomu to změnili. Nějak. Teď si nepamatuju, jak tam to bylo.
Fuck yourself! Go fuck! Get off, scum! Fuck yourself! Fuck yourself! Fuck yourself! Fuck yourself!
Musíš klipnout pomocí jiného klipu tam dolů. Fuck you. No. Klasika. Kolik máme? 4 hodiny ráno. Asi je čas jít spát, boys.
Takhle jsem už nabejtil nejednoho člověka.
No, Agraela na to, že budeš dát jednou rukou, že?
A to byla pravda. Ale on co naplikl čempa, u kterého to bylo úplně jedno, jestli hrál jednou rukou nebo Dooma.
Agrael bys ty vole zandal, kdyby si hrál nosem jenom.
Jo, já už jsem vám vyzval jednou, že půjdeme 1v1 a že si vypnu internet, ale uvidíme, no.
No tak jsem čurák, no.
Aha.